Hi, I am so glad to have you back on my channel. So in the previous chapter, we talked about some basics of that. We talked about identifiers, we talked about keywords, we talked about variables, data types. We also talked about the fact that that is able to infer a type even when you did not provide it initially. When we talked about keywords, we made mention of the lead keyword, the dynamic keyword, the final and cons. Well, we also realized that it's not feasible for us to be able to touch all the keywords we have in that. And we also say that just as we keep progressing, when we start meeting these keywords, we'll take our time to explain what they mean and what they do. I mean, the ones we have not touched, I mean, in the previous chapter. So if this is the first video you are watching, I implore you to go over to the previous videos. I mean, it's very necessary so that you could be able to keep abreast with us. So this is actually chapter 3, right? So we've done chapter 1, we've done chapter, and we discussed a whole lot of things. You may want to just take your time and watch the previous videos so that you can be able to catch up with what we are doing. In this chapter 3, we are going to be talking about control flow statements. A general overview of control flow statements in basically all programming languages is it gives a programming language the ability to make a decision, right? Ability to make a decision, ability to execute lines of code conditionally, ability to repeat a particular line of code. In chapter 1, when we talked about how the execution of our lines of code on our editor occurs, we made mention of the fact that our compiler starts from line 1. When it's done, it goes to line 2. When it's done, it goes to line 3. In this case, line 3 is empty, so it will just move over to line 4. And actually, these guys are comments. So once it sees that they are comments, it's going to ignore all of them. Apparently, the compilation starts from line 14 where we have a real line of code. So the idea is that we said that our compiler executes our line of code line by line. Think about a scenario whereby on line 14 we want to get the current time now, and then in the next 5 seconds we want to get the time again. So these are the things the control flow statement does for us. I mean, we could be able to execute this particular line of code 2 times. The first one is now, the second time is in the next 5 seconds. And then we have these 2 different points in time. So these are the things control flow statement does for us. For instance, you can look at line 21 and line 22 and line 23. So this is a for loop. A for loop is also a part of control statement because it enables you to repeat a line of code. Because of this condition here, I less than 10, this line 22, the compiler is going to compile it, and during execution, this line 22 is going to be executed 10 times. Just like if I click on run now, you can see it gives us hello 1, hello 2. We are going to discuss about all these stuffs in this chapter. So the idea is that control flow statements in that or in any programming language, they enable you to make decision. They enable you to execute a particular line of code as many times as you want. They also enable you to handle exceptions. Exceptions are just like things that do go wrong. Maybe something might go wrong in the future. You want to take care in case anything goes wrong. This is what I want you to do. So control flow statement also allows us to handle exceptions in that. So that's a general overview of what control statements are in that programming language or any other programming language. Control flow statements are kind of categorized into 4, and because of that, I decided that this chapter 3 is going to be subdivided into 4 chapters. So we are going to be having chapter 3A, chapter 3B, chapter 3C, and then chapter 3D. So I'm just going to tell you the categories. So I'm just going to write it out as a comment here, and then I'm going to delete these other ones. So I'm going to say that number 1 is conditional statement, number 2 looping statement. For number 3, we are going to have jumping statement. For number 4, we are going to be having exception handling statement. So having said this, we are going to be starting off with the first one, which is what conditional statements. I'm just going to bring this down. So before we go on discussing this first category, there is this particular function that we need to talk about because we are going to be needing it in this chapter. We are supposed to start dealing with functions maybe in the next 2 chapters, but because this function is going to be important to us here, let's just talk about it. I'll have to give you a brief overview of what a function is. Just think about the name function. So if I give you a function, that means I am assigning something to you to do. I say, okay, go and sweep, something like that. It's a function I assigned to you. That means you should go and do the sweeping. So the actual stress there is do. So a function will always what? Do something. In that and in programming, it is always advised that your function should do just one thing. Every single function should do one thing. We are going to talk about all this in the chapter when we start discussing about function. So we want to talk about the print function. So I can say print Emmanuel. We have been seeing this guy. You can look at line 20, right? We've been ignoring this guy from line 19 to line 20. I mean, this is the first chunk of code that we saw when we started that part initially. That was in our chapter 1. It also includes the print function. And you see, if I uncomment this guy, so let me just comment this guy and then uncomment this one. If I decide to run it, it's going to iterate over this and execute this line 20 10 times. And that is why we have 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10. What the print function does is that it grabs whatever you give it and then it outputs it for you on the console. I'm just going to comment it again. So that's what you need to know about the print function. Every time we call the function print, we give it a data and then it displays it for us. Let me just use that keyword display. It displays it for us on the console. So now that you know about the print function, we are going to be using it, multiple times in this chapter and in subsequent chapters. As you can see, we have two parts of this conditional statement. The first one is if and else. The second one is switch and case. So let's talk about if and else. So your if and else is more like executing lines of code conditionally. More like saying if this thing happens like this, hey, that I want you to execute this line of code for me. But if it doesn't happen like this, I want you to execute this one. So the syntax for writing an if else statement is like this. I'll start with the keyword if, so that knows that okay, you want to write a conditional statement. I'm going to put a bracket, right? So inside that bracket, I will specify the condition and then I'll put this curly bracket. Curly brackets in that whenever it is attached to functions, whenever it is attached to conditional statement, it denotes the block of code that will be executed. Just like we have this void main is a function, right? And then we have curly brackets here. We have this first curly bracket on line 1 and we have the last curly bracket on line 25. And we have been writing our code inside these two curly brackets. That curly bracket tells that to grab everything inside this place and what? Execute it. So when we say our if, we open the normal bracket and then inside that normal bracket, we specify what is the condition. Okay, if what happens, then we put up our curly bracket and say if what happens, then execute everything inside this bracket. Let's give an example. So I will say final my name is equal to what? Emmanuel. Remember we talked about final keyword in the previous chapter. So first of all, I will say if, then I'll open a bracket. Inside this bracket, I'm going to put in my condition. If the condition is met, then everything inside this curly bracket is going to be executed. But if it is not met, everything inside the curly bracket will be what? Ignored. It's just going to jump. So I can say if my name is equal to a string of Emmanuel. Execute everything inside this block. From this opening curly bracket to this ending curly bracket. And then that brings us to another stuff we will need to talk about. You can see that I am using a single equal sign here and then a double equal sign here. Remember throughout chapter 2 when we are talking about assigning data to identifiers and variables, all we were using was this equal sign. In that, a single equal sign means what? Assignment. I am assigning a data to a variable. Either I am assigning or I am reassigning. So if we remove this final and say string my name equal to Emmanuel, we could as well say that my name is equal to what? David. So we are still using a single equal sign. So whenever you have a single equal sign, it means assignment or reassignment. As a means of revision, remember we said when we do final, we can't reassign my name again. So I'm just going to clean it. So however, but the double equal sign is comparison. You want to check, is my name equal to Emmanuel? When we are talking about variables, we say that what this line 4 means is that you have a container, right? And the label of that container is my name. And then you have a data called Emmanuel, which is a string. And then you open the container, you put Emmanuel inside, you close it. So when I now bring the container, I'll now say, okay, my name. And I'll know that, okay, whenever I access my name, it is going to give me a particular type of data. So when using the double equal sign, you want to check this box labeled my name if it actually contains Emmanuel. So in order to put it as a programming statement, you just say if my name equal to. So this double equal sign means you are comparing my name to the string Emmanuel. So we want to say if my name is equal to Emmanuel, then we want to execute this block. What if my name is not equal to Emmanuel? So let's say my name is David. So if my name is equal to Emmanuel, we already know that my name is not equal to Emmanuel. So everything here is not going to be what? what executed. So it is going to jump. In order to account for circumstances where this comparison fails, that has another keyword called else. Once you write else as a keyword, you now put also your curly bracket. Remember, everything you put inside that curly bracket will be executed. If my name is equal to Emmanuel, we want to execute every line of code inside this block. If it is not, that is else, we want to execute every line of code inside this particular block. This is only checking for two conditions. The first condition says my name is equal to Emmanuel. What if my name is not Emmanuel? My name could be David, my name could be Nana, my name could be John Scott, my name could be John Doe. All the rest of the conditions apart from my name being equal to Emmanuel falls inside this else. Inside this if block, let's say print my name is Emmanuel. Then inside this guy, let's say print my name is not Emmanuel. Let's run this code. First of all, I'm just going to clear the console and I'm going to run this code. So as you can see, it says my name is not Emmanuel because initially we assigned David to my name, right? In the first block, we are saying if my name is equal to Emmanuel, say print my name is Emmanuel. If my name is not Emmanuel, I mean my name could be David. So instead of saying David, my name could be John Doe, right? And it will still print out my name is not Emmanuel. Let me click on run again. So you see that my name is still not Emmanuel. So the if else statement catches the first condition and then every other condition apart from that first condition. This if statement is catching the situation whereby my name is Emmanuel, then the else block is catching a situation whereby my name is any other thing apart from Emmanuel. So what if you want to catch a situation whereby my name is David? What if you want to catch a situation whereby my name is John Doe, right? So there is still stuff that you can put in between this if and else, which is an else if you put your block. Remember, you cannot start with an else if. That will not allow you. So I'm just going to uncomment this guy. So if my name is Emmanuel, print my name is Emmanuel. Then to be able to catch another specific condition whereby my name is David, I'll say else if my name is equal to what? A string of what? David. What do I want to do? I want to print my name is what? David. Remember, every single statement you write in that, every complete statement will always end with what? A semicolon. So what if I want to catch another specific condition whereby my name is John Doe? I will still use another else if. So you can use as many else if as possible in between an if and an else statement. Then after you catch the first condition with an if statement, any other condition you want to catch is going to be inside an else if statement. So I could say else if my name is equal to what? John Doe. So I'm going to print my name is John Doe. So now that you know about if, else if, and else statement, there are some tweaks that you can use. So the way this if and else statement works is that it checks this particular condition on line 6. If it is true, it is going to execute this guy. The rest of these blocks is going to be ignored. Our name is currently John Doe, right? So it's going to go through line 6. It checks my name is not Emmanuel. Okay. It comes to line 9. My name is not David. It say okay. Then it comes to line 12. Oh, my name is John Doe actually. My name is John Doe, right? So it's going to print my name is what? John Doe. And then it ignores this guy. No, in fact, I'm just going to click on run. So it says that my name is what? John Doe. Once you start with an if statement, you can have infinite number of else ifs in between an if and an else statement. Once any of those conditions are met, the rest of the else if blocks and the else block is going to ignore all of them. I mean, it happens like that in all programming languages. Not only that, the way we have it, if my name becomes Emmanuel, it is going to print out my name is Emmanuel and then it will ignore from line 9 to line 17. Well, what if we don't want it to ignore the rest of these guys? So what I could do is what? To use multiple if statements. So I can comment this guy and put another if statement here and say if my name is equal to David. Or what I could just do is uncomment one of these guys, then remove the else. So in this way now, it will go through the first if statement, right? Is my name Emmanuel? Well, if my name is Emmanuel, it's going to print out my name is Emmanuel. Then it does not jump this guy because this is the beginning of another check. It's still going to execute line 10 and check if my name is what? David. So all this while we have been using equal to, like on line 6 and line 10. You can say not equal to in that, right? And the syntax is, first of all, remove the first equal sign and use an exclamation mark. So on line 6 now, we are now saying if my name is not Emmanuel. So instead of saying print my name is Emmanuel, let's say print my name is not Emmanuel. So this guy actually means is not equal to. So once you do an if and put up your block, everything inside this bracket is going to evaluate to either a true or a false. So when I now check if my name is equal to Emmanuel, it's going to be true because my name is Emmanuel. So when I say if my name not equal to Emmanuel, it's going to be false because my name is Emmanuel and I'm checking is my name not equal to Emmanuel. So let me just put a comment here and say true, and then I'll put a comment here and say false. If I have this guy as false, it's obvious that he's going to jump this line 11. So let me just remove this false, and then instead of saying my name not equal to Emmanuel, I can say my name not equal to David. My name is likely Emmanuel, right? So if I run this code, these statements are going to be what printed, and I'm going to put a comment here and say it is true because initially my name is Emmanuel, and then we are saying if my name is not equal to David. My name is not equal to David because it was initially Emmanuel. I'm just going to click on run. So we can see that both line 7 and line 11 were printed out on the console. So how does it happen? First of all, it checks, oh, my name is Emmanuel. Fine. The condition is what? True. So it's going to execute this line. The next one is line 10. It checks, is my name not equal to David? True, because my name is Emmanuel and Emmanuel is not the same thing as David. So it's true. So it will execute this line. So both this guy and this guy, they are both printed out on the console. So you can add as many if statements as possible. I mean, you want to check for as many conditions as possible. So an else is more like a default. So let me just put a comment here and say default. What if the rest of every other thing doesn't happen? I mean, what if all these conditions, what if they fail to be true? What do we want to do? We fall back into our word else. So that's just basically what the else statement does for you. So you can actually remove this else statement and we are going to be fine. In this case, if none of these conditions are true, then nothing will happen. Let me put another L here so that we are having two L, right? If I click on run, nothing is going to be printed because this first condition is not true, this second condition is not true, and this third condition is not true. And we don't really have an else statement. Our else block says what is going to happen if the rest of the conditions that come before it we are not satisfied. Since we don't have an else block here, nothing is going to happen. So you can actually use an if statement with an else if, with as many else if as you want. You can use an if statement with an else, one single else statement. But remember, you cannot start off with an else if statement, and you can't start off with an else statement actually. So whenever you want to talk about your conditions, you have to start off with an if. If you have multiple checks, you can use as many else ifs for all those checks. When you are done, you will more likely need to provide a default and say, well, if every other thing doesn't happen, I want this one to happen. So let's go over and talk about our switch and case statement. I can say that a switch statement is a narrowed, a specific form of an if and else statement. The reason is because from what we saw about if and else statement, what we are just doing is that we are just checking conditions. So is this condition true? Yes, do this. But then for a switch and case statement, you are switching a particular value against any number of cases that you provide. The switch case statement is almost the same as an if else. Wherever you can use a switch case statement, you can use an if else statement, but it is not everywhere that you use an if else statement that you can use a switch case statement. Like I said, it's more like a narrowed down form of an if else statement, right? So in writing a switch case statement, first of all, we use the keyword switch. Switch is a keyword, and whenever that sees the switch, right, it will know that, oh, you want to write a switch statement. Fine. So first of all, we say switch, and then we put up a bracket. Now inside this bracket, we are going to put up what is that thing we want to compare against other constants. So basically, you use a switch statement when you want to compare a given value against other constant. For instance, you don't know a particular value, but you know that there are multiple values: value A, value B, value C, value D, something like that. Then you have value X that you don't know. Then you are using a switch statement to say, okay, what if X is A? What if X is B? What if X is C? Right? Remember, you don't know X. I'm going to comment this guy so that we just have this guy to work with. What do I want to switch? I want to switch my name. For the purpose of this tutorial, we are assigning Emmanuel to my name. So I will say my name. Then the same way I do when I write else if statement, I will put what? A block, right? We want to switch my name against different cases. So what if it is this? What if it is that? I denote it with the keyword case. So let's say case David, we put a colon. If my name is David, what do we want to do? We want to print out David. Print this David. So we print out this is what? David. Unlike an if and else statement, if the first condition is executed, it is not going to ignore the rest of the conditions unless you use the keyword break. Whenever you use the keyword break in that sees it and say, oh, break out of this statement. You can as well use the keyword return. Most of the time, you always use break. So you're actually breaking out of this particular switch statement. If this case is not met, we could put up another case, right? And say case John Doe. Well, remember, we put our colon, we print this is John Doe, right? And then we put our break statement. We are going to talk about this break statement in full, but now we are already using it here. But just like I said, it just means leave the switch statement entirely. I mean, just break out or break off or break even. Like just leave, just stop every other thing and leave, something like that. So let's have a case where my name is now equal to Emmanuel. Case Emmanuel, put a colon, and then we're going to print this is Emmanuel. And just as we do, we break out. Just like the if else statement, we also have something like an else for switch, but it is denoted with the keyword default. Then our default, we want to print I do not know this person. And remember, when we put default, we don't really need to use a break. If all the other cases fail, then your code falls back to the default block. So you can actually compare both. You can see that they are just very little difference. Like I said earlier, a switch statement is a special case of an if and else statement. And remember, if all the cases fail, it will go to a default. Well, let's just click on run and see if this case on line 27 is going to be printed out. So let me just click on run. So as you can see, our case falls on what? The case on line 27, which is the case of Emmanuel. And we are printing this is Emmanuel. Let me just add one string to this thing so that all these other cases are going to fail. And it should fall back to our default. So I'm just going to click on run again. So as you can see, we have I do not know this person. So we don't know this person, which is what? Our default case. So that brings us to a wrap on the first part of control flow statement, which is what? Our if else and our switch case statement. Thank you for sticking with me till the end of this particular video. So I implore you, if you've not liked, if you've not subscribed, if you've not hit on the bell icon so that whenever I do a new video, you're going to be notified, please just pause this video and do it. And then if you find this video helpful, you might want to share it with your loved ones. Once again, I want to thank you for being my audience. So see you in the next chapter. Bye.